I had just moved to a new neighborhood, and transferred into another school, again. This was my 17th school in my 15 years of life. I was not an army brat, or anything, I just had a difficult mother, who was a big fan of running from her problems or mistakes, most of which happened to be in the form of men. I made friends fast, of course, because everyone is very interested in talking to the new girl, even if that girl just wants to be left alone because, let's face it, she's going to be moving again in less than a year. Keep in mind that this was a time before social media or cell phones. In fact, I think AOL was just starting to be a big thing, but we were young and no one I knew my age had a computer for themselves, and only a couple had a family computer handy, so keeping in touch wasn't an option for my young bitter self. So as I started my new life, I was jostled around from group to group until I was placed into one that I fit. I don't know how middle schools work now, but back then they were very clique-y. I didn't worry, I always ended up in the popular group. I'm not trying to brag, it's just where I always ended up. I appeared outgoing, and was pretty cute, but not too cute to be threatening to the other girls. And I spent most of my time hoping to play Pokemon Red instead of putting on makeup. But I digress. Since I was jostled around a bit, I got to hear the local gossip from each group and their different takes on it. And one thing they were all fascinated with was my address. Apparently the apartment building I had just moved into had been a part of a murder investigation. Now, kids talk, so I don't know how much of this is actually true. I heard two separate stories. One was about a boy who disappeared. He was last seen riding a white bike, and this bike was later found thrown at the bottom of a stairwell that led down into underground parking. And I also heard that a body was found in the underground parking, a butcher's knife, and the words, "You're next," presumably painted in blood on the wall. There are 5 apartment buildings on this side of the school, all with above-ground parking and below-ground, but my building was the only one whose below-ground building was sealed off with cinder blocks. Weird. Maybe these stories were true. I also found the stairwell on the other side that leads down. It was taped off. And a white bike covered in mud lay at the bottom. Looking back now, I wish I could shake my younger self and say, "Police don't leave evidence, silly," but I didn't think about that. I just thought about how creepy it was. I also found police tape on the fence poles at the entrance of the blocked-off underground parking exit. It wasn't just hanging tape. It was only the small bit that was around the pole, the rest of it long since pulled down. I tried to convince my mom to move, but it was a new place and she was dating a new guy, so I had to hold tight for the 6 months or so. Fast forward 9 months. The rumors had spiraled out of control to include a killer clown for about a month after I had moved in. But then after that, the rumors died down and the stories were soon forgotten. People, I assume vagrants, had even broken open the door in the stairwell that used to be taped off, and us kids would dare each other to go into it. I'm not sure what I did, but I know I pissed off the queen bee Gemma something fierce, and determined to ruin my life and make me piss my pants, she dared me to go down there at night. I actually fancied myself as kind of smart, so logically I knew there weren't ghosts and killer clowns hanging out underground, and said sure, I'd do it. I was actually scared shitless. I'm a firm believer in spooky shit, but I tried to talk to myself logically. I was so focused on my conviction that I'd be fine because nothing supernatural was going on, that I failed to take into consideration the vagrants. Descending the stairs at night was the last thing I said I remembered. I saw some really demonic and scary shit. I assume my brain just playing tricks on me and I didn't want to tell anyone what I saw, or what I thought I saw. I did piss my pants, but Gemma and the others never laughed. I guess that's the trade-off when you get stabbed twice. We moved away within the week. This story is very true, believe it or not. I don't really care, lol. I was maybe 11 or 12, I don't really remember, but it was the span of years 2017 to 2018. I lived near an old abandoned house that looked years old. My sister and I decided to go in thinking it was empty. Oh, how we were wrong. The door to the house didn't even close, so anyone and anything seeking shelter had access to the house. We walked in, and to the right was the living room. There was a huge pile of dirt, trash, roof insulation, etc. in the center. But on top sat a Bojangles box. I live in the south and I don't know if Bojangles is a northern thing, but it's a restaurant that sells southern-style fried chicken, and it looked to be brand new. It was torn or discolored either. My sister had said there could have been someone here at some point very recently. To the left when you walk in the front door was the master bedroom, and in the closet there were clothes. They looked to be clothes from the 1900s because they looked very old. Scattered around the room were pictures. Many pictures. It seemed an African-American family lived there, but all the pictures were super old. Newest ones was only early 2000s quality. Down the hallway there is another room with a bathroom next to it, and at the back of the house to the right was the kitchen. The kitchen was fairly large considering the house was very quaint. I took a few steps into the kitchen and I wished I had noticed the flooring was very soft, but when I took one more step I fell through the floor into the basement. I heard my sister scream, but I wasn't paying attention to her. My ankle hurt, not broken bone hurt. But more, I just fell like 6 feet and I'm maybe 5 feet tall. The only light coming into the basement was from the hole in the ceiling/floor. I wish I could say it ended there, but as I tried to find a way out I heard a laugh. It wasn't a creepy clown laugh, but more like a smoker about to hack up a lung cough. I guess my sister saw them because she screamed for me to run. Being absolutely terrified, I booked it to the stairs. One of the board cracked on the way up, causing me to almost fall down. I coined my balance and got to the top, screaming to let me out. The door was locked. The person never pursued me up the stairs or chased me, as my sister had watched them the entire time. They never moved. I got out of the basement and we left and never went back. I don't know what the house looks like now because I've moved houses since then, but yeah. Hope you liked it, LOL. The most active haunted house I've ever encountered in the Naugatuck Valley. My sister lives in the most active haunted house I've been in. It doesn't freak my sister out all that bad, or me for the most part, because we both grew up in a haunted house, so we're no strangers to the unexplained. When it comes to my brother-in-law and the kids, it's a different story. Within 2 weeks of moving in, my sister saw a full-bodied apparition standing in the dining room, an older man wearing a large-brimmed hat and a vest. 2 weeks later, my brother-in-law saw the same man, and being petrified of ghosts, he didn't take it well. About a month after that, my brother-in-law encountered the man again, this time in the entryway. He stayed in his car until my sister got home. My brother-in-law is no coward, but I think he draws the line at things he can't punch. My sister and brother-in-law acquired the house from friends of theirs who were the previous occupants. They asked them if they had experienced anything strange, and their response was a matter of fact, "Did you see the man?" It was evident the prior occupants had seen this entity regularly. I was oblivious to these happenings until my sister and brother-in-law told me about them. I became intrigued and offered to check it out, planning to help hang sheetrock at their house. When I arrived, only my brother-in-law was there, sharing about the recent footsteps that had started, something I'd never encountered in all my ghost hunting days. As we worked on the sheetrock in the kitchen, we distinctly heard heavy footsteps above us on the second floor. My brother-in-law confirmed it was a regular occurrence. We continued working, listening to the footsteps and shuffling, until suddenly, there was a slamming sound that shook the floor, the old, heavy, wooden cellar doors. I suggested we investigate, though my brother-in-law wasn't thrilled. Concerned about a possible break-in, I armed myself with a claw hammer, and cautiously, we descended into the musty old basement. We found no one, yet a chill ran through me, and I hurried out. Months later, I stayed overnight to record the basement using a baby monitor. The audio was eerie, constant murmuring like a hidden conversation, even through the early morning when everyone was asleep. The activity ceased abruptly, leaving the house quiet for a year until recent, more alarming occurrences. I've seen what appears to be a woman walking through the yard in broad daylight, disappearing when I investigate. One of my nephews experienced something similar but far more terrifying, a woman's head peering around the house, followed by footsteps on the outside stairwell leading upstairs, though no one was visible. Previously random, the recent events suggest an awareness from the spirits. It's quieter now, but this house has its ebbs and flows. I hope the ghosts don't attempt physical contact next. I'm writing this as my girlfriend tells me the story, so these will be her words pretty much. My job is just to type and try not to screw up too much. When I was 12 years old, I spent the night with my best friend Carrie. We had big plans for our sleepover. We were planning to stay up all night, listen to music, play board games and talk about boys. The usual things little girls do. Around 2 a.m., after her parents were sleeping, we decided we were hungry. We knew we had to be quiet so that we didn't wake them, so we tiptoed into the hallway from her room. As we made our way into the kitchen, we had to go through the dining room. Because we were so quiet, we heard a tapping noise. Immediately we both knew that someone was tapping on the living room window. You could see into the living room from the dining room, so immediately our heads turned towards the living room. We could see a figure standing on the porch next to the window. Because of the way the porch light was illuminating the figure, it looked like a shadow. We thought the figure was Carrie's sister's boyfriend. The sister and boyfriend had been banned from seeing each other, and we assumed this was his weird way of getting her attention. We decided that either he would leave on his own, Tina, Carrie's sister, would see him, or Carrie's parents would wake up and run him off. We didn't want the last possibility to happen because we had already been told to go to sleep more than once, and we knew we'd get in trouble for sneaking into the kitchen for food when we were supposed to be asleep. As we walked through the dining room, the figure kept tapping at the window. When he came into full view, we knew for sure it was a man, and we could tell that he had a knife in his hand. The knife was what he was tapping with. Now, because this window had no shades, blinds, or curtains, we were sure he could see us as well. We both dropped to the floor and started crawling to the kitchen. When we made it to the kitchen, we literally sat in the middle of the kitchen floor whispering about what we had just seen. We were both sure that we saw the same man with a knife. We knew we had to get to her parents' room as quickly as possible. To do this, we had to walk through the living room. We sat in the kitchen trying to figure out how we were going to get there without him seeing us. We peeked around the kitchen wall and could still see him standing on the front porch. We couldn't make it to her parents' room without him possibly seeing us. We knew we had to find a place that had a door that would lock in case he came in through the sliding glass door that currently had no lock since it was broken. The sliding glass door was in the dining room and right next to where we were. We decided to crawl back to her room. As we did, we heard the front door knob jiggling. We basically freaked. We crawled back to her room as fast as we could and locked the door. We crawled to her bedroom window that faced the street so that we could see if he was still on the front porch. We didn't see him. We didn't hear tapping either. As we were watching from her window, we saw him leave her yard and start walking up the street towards the main highway. I could see the knife shimmering off the street lights. It was a huge butcher's knife. When we realized he was leaving, we ran into her parents' room to tell them what happened. We told them what we had seen, and due to our overactive imaginations and hundreds of stories that freaked us out before, they didn't believe us. We reluctantly went back to her bedroom and locked the door. We ended up sleeping on the floor, hidden by the bed from any windows in her room. The next morning was a Sunday. Carrie's dad always walked to the corner store up the street to get a paper, coffee, and smokes. When he came back, he was empty-handed. He said the store was roped off with police tape, and it turned out the clerk in the store had been stabbed to death. So, knife-tapping psycho, let's not meet. This happened the other night, and I'm admittedly still terrified by it. I wasn't sure what to do, but I know lots of people post about this kind of thing on Reddit, so I thought maybe I should post this and see what everyone thinks. I'm writing this on Friday night, 17th of August 2018, but it happened this Tuesday. For some context, I work an early shift and have to be up at 4 in the morning, so this all happened sometime between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. I'd gone to bed early and found myself asleep after a while, having strange and unnerving dreams, all of which I've forgotten the details of, but were your garden variety unpleasant dreams and paled in comparison to what happened when I woke up. I woke up to a suffocating feeling, a tightness in my chest where my heart was pounding. Now, an important thing to know about me is that when I'm exhausted, I couldn't care less about anything. I once thought my beloved childhood hamster had escaped but was so tired I couldn't get up to make sure the cat couldn't get him. He wasn't in danger, but the point is I was too tired to care about the most important thing in my life at the time. When I'm tired enough, even the fact that I can hardly breathe isn't enough to alarm me, so despite the fact that my chest was tight and the air was difficult to inhale or exhale, I remained calm. I lay there on my pack, hands against my pillow by my face, my limbs frozen in an X figure, like being pinned down. I grumbled a bit to myself sleepily as I blinked awake, unsure if it was time to get up for work. The moonlight was shining through my curtains just enough to dimly light the room with a blue glow. My eyes adjusted quickly to this lighting as I slowly panned my room for signs of what could have woken me up. My rabbit, Sir Runt, was sound asleep in his cage, as was my turtle Herc, and there was no sign of any of the cats having pushed their way in through the closed door. When I finally lolled my head to look upwards, ready to go back to sleep, I saw it. Hovering above my bed was a solid black mass in the form of a male about 5 feet 8 inches or 5 feet 9 inches. He had short hair that jutted out some as if tousled, his arms were down at his sides, slightly out, and his toes slightly bent. He looked as if he'd just begun to lift off the bed or had been paused mind-bounce on the mattress, leaning towards me at about a 45-degree angle. My first thought, still half asleep and foggy-brained as I looked at the boyish shadow, like that of a teenager, was, why is Peter Pan in my room? Or his shadow? Ridiculous, I know. I'm a 20-year-old woman and here I am half asleep with a thing hovering above me, and I go right to cartoon characters. But again, I was exhausted from a double, almost triple shift of work that day and still half asleep. A more alert part of my mind, starting to clear from the haze of sleep only a fraction of a second later, echoed a sobering thought. In the same tone of dread you'd share bad, slightly unnerving news, a voice in my head simply reminded me, "You're an adult." The instant I thought this, my eyes flew open wide. I don't know what it was about this unnervingly calm statement in my subconscious that did it, but this snapped me wide awake. I've never felt so alert before in my life, or so terrified. The thing had bad vibes rolling off it in waves. I couldn't grasp what I was seeing, but I knew two things were undeniable as I gaped at it. I was definitely awake and this thing was definitely there, real. My mind moved a mile a minute. My first thought was of the unpleasant dreams I'd been having. There's an old legend about something that sits on a sleeping person's chest and brings nightmares. It's where the word comes from. This legend was my first guess as to what I was seeing, though I immediately ruled it out. I managed to force myself to slide about half a centimeter away from it, almost involuntarily gasping, "No," as I stared. I saw a flash of two red dots where eyes should be as I yanked the blanket over my head, regaining my limbs' use. I laid in the dark, wide-eyed and gasping, trembling as I tried to figure out what had been hovering over me in my sleep. I knew whatever it was wasn't good, and I refused to risk a peek from under the blanket, lest it still be there. I've experienced a lot of scary things in my relatively short life, from stalkers to wannabe kidnappers, stories for another time perhaps, but nothing has ever scared me like this thing. Whatever that was, a shadow person, a demon, sleep paralysis, or whatever the hell else it could be, I hope it never comes back. We all like to think if we ever encountered something dark and possibly supernatural that we'd handle it with a level head, realizing the danger and hop on the first nope train to fuck thatville and get away. That's not always what happens. What are you supposed to do when you're trapped between a mattress and something watching in the dark? I always liked scary stories, urban legends and myths, but I never wanted to live in one, to be a first-hand account of something like that. It's so hard to explain, I just hope it never happens again. I know most people won't believe me, but I know this happened. I don't think I could forget if I tried. I just needed to share this somewhere with someone, even just for my own sanity.